I hope everyone had an enjoyable Easter. I'm sorry I couldn't have been with you last week, but I was sick and didn't want to spread any germs, so I stayed home. But I do want to thank Brother Mark for jumping in and filling in at the last minute. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Johnny for kind of spearheading us and getting us to paint the sanctuary. It really looks good, and we're going to continue doing a few things and get our building that we worship together in looking good. And today's lesson is going to be found mostly in Acts 19. So if you'll turn your Bibles to Acts 19, verse 23 is where we're going to start. Now, Paul is sending a couple guys, we just read, over to Macedonia to take up a collection. But he stayed in Ephesus. And we're going to start in verse 23. And the same time there arose no small stir about that way. This is one of the first words or terminology when everybody started rejecting Christians. They kind of got to be known as the way. They were in the way. And I think it's funny because, you know, we say stuff like, you're in my way, you're in the way. We're in the way to all false religion. Remind you of the scripture we talked about at the end of Sunday school. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. That's Jesus. People say, y'all are so intolerant as Christians. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Anyone that comes through him is welcome. All right, but that's the only way in, the way. But anyway, the way, for a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain unto the craftsmen. Diana is the goddess of hunting, not honey, hunting. And supposedly, according to the false teachings of their day, she was daughter of Zeus. And fertility. She was the goddess of fertility also. One of the men that I was listening to talk about this said, well, you can't go there right at the moment because if they know that you're there as a Christian, they'd probably kill you. It's near the Turkish border, Ephesus is. And but he said the last time he was there, the same bricks that Paul walked on, he walked on. The same tile that was in a lot of the temple area of Diana was the original tile that was there back when Paul was standing on it. So he says there's a great history there. But he said this is the temple of Diana. And this is how popular she was. Does anybody know how many people the Titan Stadium holds? 50-something thousand, isn't it? It is. Anyway, this stadium for Diana, this theater, this temple, held over 25,000. So it's pretty substantial. When you say, It's actually bigger than, give you a good example, is the Parthenon in Nashville, isn't it the scale size to the one in Greece? Okay, the temple that we're talking about is that size. So it was a huge place, held a lot of people. He said, but when he went there, he saw all the stones and the bricks that was original, but no goddess. But he went to Rome and to the Catholic Historical Library or whatever it is at Rome. They had the Greek goddess Diana in their library. And he says it's funny that you can't find her in Ephesus, but you can find her in the Catholic Church, you know, and a false goddess. And he said it's grotesque. And if you look it up, you'll see what he's talking about. It's corrupt. But now this man, Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain into the craftsmen. He was kind of like, I've heard it said, like the union steward for the silversmiths, okay? And so everybody knew him, whom he called together with the workmen of like occupation and said, sirs, you know that by this craft we have our wealth. We've made our living. This is how we've made our money, is through this crafting of these little shrines, these personal idols that people can carry and worship, tuck inside their tunic, and it gives them something to cast their anxieties on. This is something that they feel like they can put their trust in. But we have a problem here. What's the problem? Verse 26, moreover, you see and hear that not alone at Ephesus, but almost throughout all Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away much people, saying that there be no gods which are made with hands. Let's see. If I was to want to make my own God, I'd have to fashion it, wouldn't I? And then I'd have to cast it with something. I mean, whether it was with metal or wood or ceramic or something. And then I could have my God, couldn't I? But the word God would say that's not a God. Would you not agree? What would that be? Some craft that I made, that some piece of art, piece of garbage. But it's not God, because God doesn't need someone to create him. He is the creator, not the creation or the creature. We're the creature. I used to read where the gospel was for every creature, and I'm thinking, okay, dogs. And no, the created being called human that God created to have a soul and a spirit and to be triune like him in flesh. So when we come to this here, he says, Paul has persuaded and turned away much people, saying that there be no gods which are made with hands. One man, now he preferred to have an entourage in a way. He didn't like being alone. Every time you catch him alone, you find him getting depressed and weary and worried, you know. But when he had brothers with him, he was the strong one, you know. But Paul persuaded and turned away much people from what? False gods. From lies. What was he bringing? The way, the truth, and the life. He's bringing Jesus. Do you see how this plays back to Christ? I am the way, the truth, and the life that we find in John. So now we're looking. What a testimony. What kind of testimony precedes you when people talk about you? They talk about your walk with the Lord and your faith in the Lord. Can I give you a modern day example? And the reason I do modern day examples, a lot of preachers don't agree with this, but I give you a modern day example because when you see it and hear it, and if you know the whole story, maybe you can perceive what I'm talking about. Jason, who preached here a couple weeks ago, came up, and you know, I talk about him and I brag on him all the time. But every time I talk about him, what do you notice that I talk about? His faith, right? His knowledge of God and his service of God. And I also tell you a lot of times, I know he's not perfect. I don't have him on a pedestal, but I do admire because his witness precedes him of what he's doing. What about Brother Doug? He's another one. I talked to you about his faith, about his knowledge of God, and his service to God. These are men of God that by their example, you know what they are. Now, my question to you, when people talk about you, do they talk about your faith or do they talk about your what? Do they talk about how you sneak around and do this or do that? They talk about your trash mouth, your trash attitude, your lack of faith. What is it? Are you actually making an influence, a change? And see, that's what we need to, that's what I've been trying to do, and I don't do a very good job at this sometimes. I want you to elevate your look up to Christ and understand we know the truth, and it should have set us free to serve. Now, I'm going to give you another example. Jason, as he was coming up through the church, he was our youth minister. And I've told this story a bunch of times, but I'll never forget the day we loaded him up with 15 or 16 kids in that blue van that did not have air conditioning in the heat of the summer. It smelled like a locker room. It stunk so bad. A locker room and dog is the combination smell. So just imagine that. It's hot and sweaty. He's not married. He has no children. And he's on his own. He's a young man, and he's got a van load of these kids and teenagers. And he's going to do something with them all day up in Nashville in that van. I followed him out. He hooked a left, and I saw him in the rear, in his little side mirror. As he's turning, he's looking at the kids, and he's smiling. I'm thinking, God's got his hand on this man, you know? I mean, and then he became our associate pastor. He started school. He worked here in the church. And I bust him in the chops every time I get a chance. And I said, and you left me. I thought you was going to be here, and you left me. What's he doing, though? You know, he goes to a big church, and I make fun of him for going to this church. It's the Third Baptist Church. That's their name. Have you ever heard of such? It's almost like Third National Bank, Third Baptist Church. You know, why don't you want to be first, you know, or something? I mean, I guess because they're worried about the first to be last and last to be first. I don't know. I'm just kidding. It's a big church. Educated people in this church. A lot of folks. They're wanting him to be an elder, and I think they're actually positioning him to probably be an associate pastor there. He is serving God. You understand? So when he comes here, I feel privileged that he would come here and preach to us and take time. But let's get back to you for just a minute. What kind of reputation precedes you? Are they saying, man, you ought to see his faith? he continues on, and sometimes I don't know how she continues on, or how they continue on as a family, knowing that they have this or that, and yet every time you see them, they're smiling, they're happy, they're serving. Are they saying that? Now look, I think it's really funny. In verse 26, he's called all the people together in their craft. Moreover, you see and hear that not alone at Ephesus, but almost all throughout all Asia, not just Fairview, but all of Middle Tennessee, not just all of Middle Tennessee, but all of Tennessee. You understand? This Paul has persuaded and turned away much people, saying that there be no gods which are made with hands, so that not only this our craft is in danger to be set at naught, not only will we lose our money, a way to make money, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana, now how great a temple is that? It's as big as the Parthenon in Nashville, should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipeth. So now he's stirring them up. What he tells his truth first. What's the main problem here? Getting in my wallet. That's why a lot of people say we can tell your service to God by your pocketbook. Where are you spending your money? What's catching the money in your interest? And look, that's why we set up different offerings here. It's not so that we're trying to get more money. For example, your heart might not be with the children of India. Your heart might be with some other thing that we do, maybe the food pantry for the local folks. We used to have one in West Virginia, but Sister Diane died, and so we don't have any missionary that we're really supporting in West Virginia now. We used to send money, lots of money, and clothing and food and a lot of help over there. And the only reason that stopped is because she got sick and she passed. And we didn't have anybody. I don't want to be a bad steward and just send over there and the stuff get thrown away or whatever. So anyway, that's why we separate it. Because if your heart's not in it, we don't want you to be given because there's an opportunity to give. We want you to give because you're giving because of what you want to do for God and what areas. So, back here, we're looking at, so not only this, our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipeth. Well, it is true, all of Asia, not all, but all of Asia, but not everybody, how's that? Worshipped this false god. And when they heard these sayings, they were full of wrath and cried out, saying, Great is Diana of the Ephesians. And the whole city was filled with confusion. Isn't that how it goes with lies and false teachings and false gods? There comes confusion. What does God say He don't want in His house? He don't want confusion, but things done decently and in order. And the whole city was filled with confusion, and having caught Gaius and Aristarchus, men of Macedonia, Paul's companions in travel, they rushed with one accord into the theater. And when Paul would have entered in unto the people, the disciples suffered him not. It's a good thing he had some friends there that day. He might have died there instead of Rome, because these people are so crazed. And what were they crazed about? Once again, money. And the love of money is the root of all evil. And they were so worried about the money that they had all rushed in. They'd stopped what they were doing, and now they're having a riot or a protest and screaming and hollering and confusion in this theater. And all the city is trying to get into it. The disciples suffered him not. And certain of the chief of Asia, which were his friends, sent unto him, desiring him that he would not adventure himself into the theater. And these are the leaders, the politicians and stuff that he had rubbed elbows with. See, Paul was a man of God, and he was reaching out to all people. All right, he reached the soldiers, he reached the poor, he reached the Gentiles, the Jews. And they asked him, please don't go in there. Some therefore cried one thing, and some the other, for the assembly was confused, and the more part knew not wherefore they were come together. Reminds me of these protests that we see on TV, and they go up and ask the people what they're protesting for, and they can't answer the questions. You ever notice that? And it's like, why are you even here? Well, just so you know, nowadays, if they're going to have a protest, they know they really can't get anybody just to show up anymore, so they'll pay you. So if you'll tote a sign and take $20 an hour, they'll even ship you in on a bus sometimes and give you a bus ride and give you the money after the fact, as long as you stand there and look pretty for the cameras. So they can say, look at this, we had 200, and they show 20. But anyway. Did y'all notice we had a big crowd this morning in church? We had about 150 in here. Span this crowd real quick. Get that section right there. Big crowd. Big crowd. No, okay. I'm sorry. I digress. Paul wanted to go in. What was Paul going to do? He was going to try to persuade these guys what he done persuaded all of Asia. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by him. Diana is a figment of your imagination, something that you've formed with your own hands, a false god, a false teacher. There's no hope in her. There's only hope in Jesus. They'd have stoned him right there. But this whole assembly was confused, and the more part knew not wherefore they were come together. It's just a bunch of stuff happening. Let's go see what's going on. Now, that's human nature, ain't it? We see blue lights go out the road. Guess what my wife says? Wonder where they're going. You want to follow them? Don't roll your eyes, woman. You know you say that. Let's go see where they're going, what's going on. I don't never rubberneck either, right? Not me. And they drew Alexander out of the multitude, the Jews putting him forward, and Alexander beckoned with his hand and would have made his defense unto the people. Now, he was like the Jewish leader in the community. But when they knew that he was a Jew, all with one voice about the space of 2 hours cried out, Great is Diana of the Ephesians. Because what did the Jews do? The same thing as Paul did. Diana is not a god. She's a false god and an idol to be worshipped. She's not the true God. To them, there was only one true God, and that was Jehovah or Yahweh. And they didn't recognize Jesus as being the son of him. But when they found out that he was a Jew, they didn't let him speak, and for 2 hours, all they did was cheer, Great is Diana of the Ephesians. Can you say that? That doesn't sound like people would do that, right? No, we'll fill up. Y'all didn't know the Tennessee Titans, so let me ask you, Neyland Stadium, how many people does it hold? Anybody know? How many? Say it out loud, I can't hear a number. What? 105,000. That's twice as big as the Titans Stadium. You fill that up on a Saturday and for over 2 hours. Go Vols! Go Vols! Go Vols! Go Vols! Go Vols! Right? Am I right? Over a football game, you say that's kind of foolish. Some say, well, no, it's a football game. Well, this was their God that they're defending, which is no God. And we worship the true God. Would you stand 2 hours and cry out Jesus is Lord? It's hard to get us to cry out Jesus is Lord here in the church service. It's hard to get excited enough to stand and rant or rave or anything about Jesus. But we can rant and rave about the government. We can rant and rave about this political group or that political group. But yet we cannot elevate our look up to the Lord enough to say Jesus is Lord. And I'm going to follow Him. Even if He makes me leave my family. Even if He takes me to this part of the country or another part of the world. Or if He asks me to lay down my life for Him. I'm too busy. You don't understand who I am, Skip. I got family that I got to take care of. I got to watch after them. I need to do this. I need to do that. Can I be quite so bold? When you do that, you have chose them over God. Has God changed? In the very beginning, He says, I'm a what? A jealous God. He wants to be number one in your life or not at all in your life. You don't get to be kind of a Christian. A kind of a Christian is not a Christian. The good news is, I think we'll go there in just a minute. That'd be a good way to probably wrap this up. Great is Diana of the Ephesians. And when the town clerk had appeased the people, he said, Ye men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how the city of Ephesians is a worshipper of the great goddess Diana, and of the image which fell down from Jupiter? Seeing then that these things cannot be spoken against, you ought to be quiet and to do nothing rashly. For you have brought hither these men, which are neither robbers of churches, nor yet blasphemers of your goddess. Wherefore it is Demetrius and the craftsmen which are with him have a matter against any man. The law is open, and there are deputies. Let them implead one another. But if you inquire anything concerning other matters, it shall be determined in the lawful assembly. For we are in danger to be called into question for this day's uproar, there being no cause whereby we may give an account of this concourse. And when he had thus spoken, he dismissed the assembly. In other words, we got laws and law rooms for this and courts for this. And if not, you need to be quiet, because now we got to answer to the government about what y'all done, and there's no reason for it. Everybody knows that we worship Diana here. This is Diana country. I want to show you something. What did Paul do to start that riot? Was he preaching in the theater against Diana? Was he in the synagogue making the Jews angry at that time? What caused this problem? the truth, but his reputation, because he was still there. Are you getting a picture of what I'm trying to show you? What's your reputation like? I don't care what it used to be like. What is it like now, or what is it like after listening to this lesson? What's it going to be like today and tomorrow? I tell you what I know that I want mine to be like. I want mine to be like Paul's. I want it to be, when people start thinking about me, I want them to either love Jesus or hate my guts. Because then I'm serving the Lord. You know, what did Jesus do to make the people hate him? Told them the truth and loved them. Isn't that about it? I mean, I can't think of what he did to make somebody hate him. He just told them the truth and loved them. Yeah, he did throw a couple of tables around too, didn't he? Well, give me just a second here. It might still be in my Bible. If you will, stand to your feet. Brother Johnny, you come on up here. One day, when we're in heaven and we're at the judgment seat of Christ, all the sins and wickedness of my life will be revealed for all to see. And I thank God that He'll wipe away those tears of shame. I pick on my wife a lot, but in all honesty, I admire her so much. The reason I admire her is she sees me. She has seen me since I was a kid till I'm an old man. And she sees what y'all don't always see, and some of you see it. I don't know how she keeps her faith, married to a man supposable of faith, when she sees my downfalls. The lesson that I want to bring will be in a couple of weeks. That's what I was going to do this morning, and I cannot and do it justice. But I want you to know that I know that all of us has that past, and we're letting the past hold us from what God has prepared for us and to do. And I have found out when we do what God wants us to do, that is where we find our blessings. You don't find blessings in pursuing what you think. You find your blessings in doing what He's asked you to do and what He saved you for. That's when you'll find the peace that passes all understanding. But we allow what we think is our reputation hold us instead of going on and letting Christ use us and let it all being like a Paul. Paul says, even if it slays me, I'm going to Rome. Even if it slays you, or what is it, the thing that He's asking you to do? And I'm pretty sure He's not asking you to go to be crucified. I think He's just asking you to crucify your flesh and do what He wants you to do instead of what you want to do, kind of like what you and me were talking about. That's difficult because we want what we want. We don't always want what God wants. And we want to act like we're somebody. But you know, sometimes I think the sins that you and me know about from, He's not even worried about that no more. But we use those thoughts and let it hold us back from doing what He's asking us to do now sometimes. The asking and us not obeying is worse than the things that we've done in the past. Because in the past we really wouldn't serve, and now we're serving. We're trying to serve, but now we're wanting to pick and choose. Really? That's not your choice. He saved you for a reason. I pray that if you need prayer, if you need help, you'll come down to the altar today. And if you're not living like you know you should, and look, I'm not talking about what people is considering gross sin. I'm talking about when you know God is speaking to you and you disobey because you will not do what He's asked you to do. I can't say it no better or no different. I'm sorry, I can't sugarcoat it. That's the worst sin. That is the gross sin. When you're a child of His and you won't do what He asks you to do. I don't get upset with y'all when you don't do what I ask you to do. You're not my children. But if I ask my child or my grandchild who I'm trying to bring up to do something they don't do it, I get upset with them. You're the child of the King. As He asks you to do something that you refuse to do, if you have, you need to ask for His forgiveness and to get about your Father's business. I don't know what that might be, but you do. The altar is open, Brother Johnny.
Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling.